"You're outdated. We're done here," the CEO hissed. I nodded. Understood. I've learned that silence is the most dangerous reply a man can give. It leaves room for systems to activate, trusts to wake up, voting rights to move quietly, like knives sliding free. By Monday morning, the board was asking the same question everyone always asks too late. Who just fired the person who owns 76% of the shares? But that wasn't my first betrayal. It was just the loudest. The quieter one happened while I was 12 time zones away, staring at Hong Kong Harbor, closing a deal that would double our net worth. My phone buzzed at 3:17 a.m. Brooklyn time. A neighbor I barely knew sent a photo. My brownstone front door, open. A man I recognized standing in my doorway. Her ex-husband. The keys were still in the lock. I didn't call my wife. Not yet. Panic is sloppy. I enlarged the image, zoomed in on the doorframe, on the shadow lines, on the new security camera I'd installed last year, one she claimed was overkill. It was already recording. That house wasn't just property, it was my parents' last argument and their last apology. It was the smell of my mother's coffee and my father's books. I inherited it with one condition written into the trust in my mother's careful handwriting. No spouse may transfer access or occupancy without unanimous trustee approval. I was the sole trustee. My wife knew that, or she thought she did. We met young. She admired my restraint. I admired her fire. I believed that love could survive ambition. I let her redecorate the brownstone, choose paint colors, talk about our future there. I even let her keep a spare set of keys to spite the clause. Marriage requires faith, I told myself. Her ex-husband was a ghost we never finished burying. Financial help, emotional closure, the kind of man who never leaves a room without taking something with him. The cameras showed him walking in like he belonged there. That's when the pain stopped being loud and started becoming useful. I landed in New York 48 hours later. Didn't go home. I went to my lawyer's office instead, then my accountant's, then the private security firm that monitored the brownstone system. I asked for everything. Logs, audio, entry timestamps, footage backups. He wasn't just visiting, he was sleeping there, using my father's study as an office, hosting meetings, receiving mail, establishing residency. Squatter's rights, if you squinted hard enough and believed lies long enough. My wife thought she was helping him get back on his feet. She forgot whose ground he was standing on. I let it continue for 3 weeks, long enough for him to get comfortable, long enough for my wife to feel clever, long enough to gather evidence that would make a judge lean back in their chair and sigh. Then I moved. The trust executed its first clause automatically. Occupancy violation triggers immediate transfer of the property into a shell LLC. The second clause followed. Any unauthorized resident is considered a trespasser. The third was my favorite, surveillance evidence pre-authorized for civil and criminal proceedings. I changed nothing outwardly, still kissed my wife goodbye, still asked about her day, still pretended I didn't know why she smelled like someone else's cologne when she came back from checking on him. The eviction notice arrived on a Friday morning, not addressed to him, addressed to both of them. She called me screaming. He called me threatening. I listened to the voicemails in order, like tracks on an album I'd produced myself. By Sunday, he was out. By Monday, her lawyer was confused. By Tuesday, she was crying in my kitchen, saying she didn't know the house had already been transferred. That was the moment I told her the truth. The house was never yours to give, I said calmly, just like my loyalty. She reached for me. I stepped back. The divorce was efficient, surgical. The prenuptial agreement she'd once laughed at activated like a guillotine. No alimony, no claim to inherited assets, no access to the trust. She left with her clothes and her regrets. And that should have been enough, but betrayal has a way of echoing across different rooms of your life. At work, the CEO thought he was ending me. He didn't know I'd structured my compensation through the same retirement trust that held the brownstone. He didn't know the board votes were weighted. He didn't know silence meant consent only for fools. When he said, "We're done here," I let the system answer for me. The emergency meeting was brief. His face went pale when the numbers appeared on the screen. 76%. Irreversible. Final. Security escorted him out of my building.
I walked past him without stopping. Weeks later, I returned to the brownstone alone. I changed the locks myself. I sat in my father's study and opened the windows. The house felt lighter, like it had been holding its breath. People think revenge is loud.